This all possible. Our guest went to Michigan, drafted in one of the greatest wide receiver classes of all time in 1996, drafted in the second round by the New York Giants, all-time leading receiver for Big Blue, and also won a Super Bowl in 2007. My pleasure to welcome in wide receiver Amani Toomer. Welcome. How are you?
Good. Doing very good.
So 1996, great wide receiver class. You know, some of the great wide receivers of all time. So just take us through how you felt with all those great wide receivers and where you thought maybe your placement would be as you got ready for the draft in 96.
Well, going into the draft, I was pretty confident I'd be a first-round draft pick. I was, rated really high. I actually was very disappointed on draft day that I ended up going in the second round, but it ended up being a blessing in disguise going to New York. I know a lot of people. There's, I think the guy who went ahead of me, Eric Moulds, went to Buffalo.
Right.
He might have got a little bit more money up front, but I got a chance to live in New York. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was your knowledge of the Giants and the city of New York when you were drafted?
I had no knowledge of New York. I'm actually originally from California. The Giants, my first thought of the Giants, because I was a huge San Francisco 49er fan growing up, was when Jim Burt knocked out Joe Montana in the playoff game. I can't remember the championship game.
Divisional playoffs.
Yeah, you can clap now, but I was not clapping when that happened. I was like, this isn't fair. What is going on? Because as I see Joe Montana walking to the locker room, knowing that our team was going to lose that day, I was pretty upset. But I've seen Jim Burt since then, and I still give him a little cross eye whenever time I see him.
So you go to the playoffs in 97. You win the division at 10-5-1, Jim Fossil's first year, and a disappointing loss to the Minnesota Vikings in the playoffs. But how did you feel about the team at that point? You were only in your second year. You had won your division. So were you thinking that this was going to be the beginning of championship after championship? What was your thoughts leaving the field against Minnesota?
That was like a real turning point for me because I didn't really get a chance to play that much that game. I was a third down receiver. And I felt like if we had just one more player to make one more play in that game, it would have gave us a lot better of opportunity to win that game. So after that season, I went back to, kind of the drawing board, and I was working out real hard every day during the off season. And I went to Coach Fossil, and I was like, Coach, what do I have to do to play? And he says, well, I don't really think you're that tough. So I took that in, and I started doing some things to try and, get myself right. And he goes, I don't think you're in good shape because every time you're on the field, you look like you're tired. And then he goes, I don't think you're very, you don't know the playbook. So I grabbed one of the quarterbacks and during the off season, and we got out, and I was telling him, teach me everything about this offense, the blitz pickups and all that stuff because I was missing a lot of that stuff. So then I was running every day to try and get myself in shape, and I was doing kung fu to try and get my hands right so I can get off the line of scrimmage. And then the next year is when I really had an opportunity to kind of break out.
So 98 and 99 are not championship seasons for the Giants, but the one thing I think of is that 98 season, Denver Broncos come to town, ride an undefeated season, and you caught the game-winning touchdown pass in the back of the end zone.
Yeah.
How motivated were you going into that game to try to stop their undefeated season?
We knew we had a good shot because we knew we matched up very well against them. And we had a disappointing season up to that point because we were supposed to, go back to the playoffs since we were there the year before, and we didn't do that. We had an opportunity to kind of right the ship against the Denver Broncos. They came in 14-0, and we just thought if we can do it, if we can prove to ourselves we can beat the best team out there, it just will help us springboard us for the next season. We gave our best shot, game planned them great. Everything really went as planned. And then at the end of the game, they come back and score. And then I remember catching the punt or a kickoff and fumbling it and just catching it right before the other team got it. And I remember going on to, one of my best friends was running on the field because he was a left tackle. And I asked him, I was like, well, what's the personnel? What group? Are we going 4 wides, 3 wides? And he was so mad at me because the whole team had played so well up to that point. And I fumbled this ball and lost like 10 or 12 yards that he wouldn't even talk to me. So that's what I knew I had to do something big, and I ended up making that play, which ended up kind of putting me on the map as a player.
So early in your career, you have Danny Cannell, You have Kent Graham, and then the Giants go out and get Kerry Collins via free agency. What did you know of him, and how did you feel when he came in to be your quarterback?
I was really excited because I played against him in college. He went to Penn State. I went to Michigan. Of course, they beat us in the last minute of the game. So I was really excited about the prospects of having a real top-flight quarterbacks throughout. Because all throughout my career, I never really had that guy that could get the ball anywhere, make all the throws, and so I was pretty excited. But all the off-the-field stuff kind of made me a little bit weary because the fact that if you have off-the-field problems in North Carolina, I mean, what are you going to have in New York?
Right.
So that's when I was like, well, we'll see what he does, and he ended up doing really well, and I was really proud.
One of the off the field things was apparently a racial situation he had with one of his teammates. So, how did you go in personally with him? Did you just let him be himself? Did you have any apprehension because of some of the problems that he had off the field?
No, I didn't have any. I didn't have any drawbacks to him because the fact that there's a lot of stories written about all the players, and half of it's true, half of it's not. So anytime I meet somebody, I try to see what they're about, one-on-one, and don't let anything else, any other kind of background stuff influence myself or them, because you never know. Like, could have been a reporter that doesn't like him. He could have been in a bad situation. Right. So I kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt. He ended up being a great guy.
So 2000 comes. You're not having the greatest the seasons to start. And some people believe that Jim Fossil's speech and his guarantee was out of desperation to save his job, and some people thought it was absolute genius. The team responds, but when you heard that speech, he's putting all the chips at the center of the table and guaranteeing going to the Super Bowl. What was your initial reaction to that? I
was like, we were 7-4 at the time. We were number one in our division. We had lost 2 games in a row. So up to that point, before that, we were 7-2.
Mm-hmm.
So we lost 2 games in a row, and I thought I didn't buy into it. I thought it was corny. I thought we were a good team. Everybody knew we were a good team. After we played the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night, then he goes and then we play the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night, which was effectively our last tough game. And then he throws all the chips on the table and was like, "Yeah, we're gonna go to the playoffs." And I'm like, yeah, we got Jacksonville and some other weak teams going, so I didn't really buy into it.
Yeah, I think if memory serves, maybe you had Arizona coming up next, and I remember thinking that's usually when you do it, when you've got an easy win, because the last thing you want to do is lose. But it put a lot of pressure on him, but it doesn't sound like that was the reason you guys went to the Super We
No, it was funny because around the locker room, I'm talking to the different players, and they're kind of like, well, look at this guy. I can't believe he's doing all this. And then we keep winning, and then all of a sudden you start hearing, yeah, when the coach really said that, he took a lot of pressure off of us. And I'm talking, and I read it in the paper, and I go up to the guys, and I'm like, weren't we just talking about this a couple weeks ago? And they're like, yeah, well, you got to kind of go with it, And that's kind of how it went.
Now, I have friends that aren't Giant fans who say to me, gee, you get crushed in the Super Bowl by the Ravens. Why even bother going? But I remember that feeling at Giant Stadium when you guys crushed the Minnesota Vikings. You jumped on them early. And just take us through how that felt in front of all those fans to be able to finally get a chance to go back to the Super Bowl.
That was one of the best days I had playing at Giant Stadium. We had LT, we had all the former Giants come out the day before and give us a speech. Then, as we're coming out of the tunnel, all the fans had their towels going, and the whole place was rocking. It was electric, and then you see LT, getting us all ready before the game, and then we go out and perform the way we did. We run back the first kickoff, and it just was running downhill. And that was one of the best games, just because nobody gave us a shot. Everybody thought Randy Moss and and Dante Culpepper would be, I think they gave us one of his jerseys with the Super Bowl logo on it, and they put it on our little thing just to kind of give us a little extra motivation. But that was a great day.
So you go to the Super Bowl, and a turning point is the Jesse Armstead defensive holding penalty. Do you think if that's not called and that interception counts, that maybe things would have turned out differently?
No, I think the fact that our coaching staff went into that game with totally intimidated by their defense. Mm-hmm. So all the stuff that we've done and that all the way up to that point, we tried to change and try to trick their defense. We can't run at the middle, they're too big. We have to run around the edges. We have to do all this stuff, which fed right into what they were all about, which was speed. And so I remember leaving that game thinking we didn't even really put our best effort out there because our coaches were so intimidated by this defense that it really it was one of the most disappointing feelings I've ever had because it was helplessness. We couldn't do what we had done to get to that point to compete and see what our skills really did and how they really did match up against the Ravens.
Bounce back season in 2002 for the team and a huge lead against the 49ers. Years later, are you able to kind of articulate what might have happened in that game?
I think our offense was really good, and we had, Kerry Collins was throwing the ball really well. Myself, I was playing well. Tiki Barber was doing good, and so was Jeremy Shockey. But our defense just couldn't hold up throughout the whole time. I think the fact that our defensive coordinator, it just was a little bit unorganized on that side. Looking back, it was a little bit unorganized. We didn't think that. We thought we were going to win. We thought we were going to keep on going on, but we just didn't have it defensively.
So eventually the Giants draft Eli Manning. Now you've got another quarterback. Where does he rank among the quarterbacks that you've had with the New York Giants?
I think he was. I think Kerry Collins was probably my favorite quarterback because he threw me the ball more, frankly. But Eli, I really respected him from day one. Just because of the way he approached the game. A lot of people, if you give him a $20 million check, they're just not going to go out there and be as motivated. But it didn't really seem to affect Eli. He came and was eager to learn. Always sat in the front in all the meetings and was very kind of knew what it took to get to that next level. And I think he's proving the quarterback that everybody thought he was going to be.
So 2007. The team has an amazing regular season. They go 10-6, but the expectations aren't championship, or at least from a lot of the fan standpoint. And you have a great playoff run, all on the road. You beat Tampa Bay. You beat Dallas. Now you're in a championship game against the Green Bay Packers. Was that one of the coldest games you ever played in?
By far. It was the coldest game. I remember we used to go out, Plexico, Eli, and myself would go out, and we'd do the pregame. We'd kind of run the route tree, just kind of get warmed up. And that game, it usually took us about 20 minutes. But that game, we were in and out on the field and back in the locker room in 5 minutes because it was so cold. We were like, "Are you good?" Yeah, I'm good. Let's go, So
there's so many memories of that game. The red face of Tom Coughlin, the field goals, the interception by Brett Favre. But you had a catch on the sidelines that was one of the best I've ever seen. Not just catching the ball, keeping it in bounds. You're telling me that it's the coldest game you ever played in. What are your memories of that catch on the sideline?
I remember I got the wind knocked out of myself on that play, and the wind knocked out, let's say, and I remember that being a very painful situation for me. So that's the one thing that the first memory that comes is like, I catch the ball and I'm going down to the ground. I'm thinking that ground is frozen. And then as it's getting closer, I'm like, this is gonna hurt. Boom, and then it ended up hurting.
Were you surprised that you were still in that game? How did you feel going into that game against Green Bay? It's Brett Favre, it's Green Bay, it's one of those original NFL matchups. You're an underdog like you had been all season. What were your hopes going into that game?
Honestly, I just felt like we were going to give our best effort, and I remember being very intimidated by the cold early on. I mean, I remember when we came back out to the field after my premature Eli and I's premature warm-up. I went out and we saw the Green Bay Packers, and they had like their socks down. They weren't wearing tights. They weren't wearing sleeves. So I'm like, oh my God, these guys are crazy. They must be used to this or something. And then, we come back out after the game. I mean, right before the game actually started, and I see all with the sleeves and stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah. But I remember sitting on the field standing on the field right before, looking at the other side of the field, thinking one of these teams is going to go to the Super Bowl. And then the whole mantra before the game for everybody was, it's going to be warm in Arizona. So, let's get through this and we'll go to Arizona and have some warm weather.
Compare your feeling going to the Super Bowl in 2007 to 7 years prior when you went against Baltimore. You were a little older, more mature, probably a much better player at that point. So did you have any different feel going into that Super Bowl as opposed to your first?
The first Super Bowl was such a traumatic experience for me that as soon as Tynes kicked the ball through and we won, I jumped up. I was like, yes. And I'm like, oh, man, we're going back to Super Bowl. because it was such a heartbreak. I mean, there's nothing worse than getting so close to your dreams of, and then going back getting so close to your dreams, and then to have them come down the way in which they did against the Ravens, and then now we're gonna go to the Super Bowl again against the undefeated Patriots. And I was just like, oh man, this can't happen again. So I was so focused, and our whole team was so focused, because I kept telling everybody what a horrible situation it is when all the confetti's going off at the end of the game and it's not for you.
What was your angle on the Tyree catch? What did you see?
I didn't see the catch. Actually, I thought I was gonna get the ball, because I was running the route, right, because it was 2nd and 10. No, it was 3rd and 10. Sorry about that.
It's always somebody to remind you, believe me.
Yeah, it was 3rd and 10, and I was running right at the stick, so I was running that right at the 10-yard mark, and Plexico was running it deeper in behind me, and so I thought I was getting open, and I looked for Eli, I couldn't find him, and then I saw him, and then I saw his shoulder dip, and usually when a quarterback shoulder dip, he's throwing the ball deep. I'm like, where's he throwing the ball to? So he dips and he lets it go, and I'm like, oh, Dave got it. Then I can't remember the guy's name. Rodney Harrison. Thank you. You guys know better than me. You guys saw the same game too?
Yeah. Got a huge rating in New York.
So I saw Rodney Harrison right by Dave, and I'm like, oh, he's not gonna get it. And then I heard the crowd go crazy. And I remember everybody hurrying up because we didn't know if he had caught it or not. And then I remember talking to Plexico after the game, and we both thought the same thing. As soon as his shoulder dipped and the ball left, we were like, oh, man, 4th and 10. And that was the first thing that went through our head. So anyway, then after talking to Plexico again, he was talking about how, as soon as Dave made that catch, because Plexico had one catch the whole game. Mm-hmm. As soon as he made that catch, he was like, oh, man, everybody's game had to step up, because you can't make that catch become obsolete, be just another play in the Super Bowl. So that's when everybody kind of really – I mean, we always thought we were going to win, but when we were that close, we really believed it.
So Plaxico catches the touchdown, and I'm watching the game with Michael Kay in the building, and as happy as I was, I look right at the clock, and I see Tom Brady, and I'm thinking, this game's far from over. Were you thinking the same thing?
Exactly, because I was in college. I was involved in a game when Colorado played Michigan. When the last minute, when
Stewart, Cordell Stewart.
I'm telling you, you guys are good. You guys are good. You guys are really good. When Cordell Stewart threw the ball to Michael Westbrook. See, I remember that name. So I was thinking, as soon as the ball, and there was two chances to Moss, and the ball's in the air, and I'm just like, oh no, Cordell Stewart again. And then we lost again a couple of years ago, when we talked about earlier, the San Francisco 49ers.
Yep.
So as both of those plays are going in the air and the ball's going down the field, that's exactly what's going through my mind. Oh no, Cordell Stewart. Oh no, again, here we go again, the 49ers in the playoffs. And all those games were coming up in my head, and for it to finally be over and for us to finally win, it just made me feel like all those games were worth it, at the end of the day.
What was the first thing that popped in your head when the ball was incomplete and you knew you won?
I mean, I honestly, you always think you can win, but I couldn't believe we actually won. And I remember my mother came down the field, my family came, and I'm just sitting there like, they're 18-1. We won. We won. And that was one of the best times in sports. Yeah. That was in sports.
So now you're on to life after football, and you're going to run in the New York City Marathon. Tell us about that.
Yes, yeah. I'm partnering with Timex, and I'm running the marathon for the New York Roadrunners youth programs. They're after-school programs that help kids fight obesity as we're eating the healthy
food. Some of it's
here.
a lost cause,
Yeah, but no, I've done after-school program stuff, throughout my whole career, and I thought it was a good opportunity for me to do this. And actually, I'm gonna start dead last in the marathon, and for every person I pass, Timex is gonna pledge $1 to those programs. So it's just gonna be a good all-around winner for me. Yeah.
Now you've been training for a while because you have to. So compare training for a marathon as opposed to training for an NFL season.
Well, it's a little easier. Nobody's hitting me, so I feel a little better about that.
There's a lot of people out there. I'm sure you're going to bump into a few of them.
Yeah, no. Hopefully, I'll be passing a couple, but it's been great. It's been a good experience for me, just because I get a chance to work out, and I get a chance to to do something for these programs, and I don't know. I'm just enjoying it, and I got a lot of good equipment from Timex that helped me out. They gave me their their new technology and their GPS watch, which has made it really fun for me to work out, because every time I work out, I know exactly how fast I'm going. I know exactly my distance and all that stuff, to just kind of get you to, every time I go to work out, I'm working out for a purpose, which makes it a lot more better and fun to me.
What do you miss about the NFL?
I miss game day. That's about it. Yeah, I don't miss the day after the game. I don't miss, when you go and you don't have a game that you want to have, you're thinking about, oh man, what is this film session going to be like? Did I embarrass myself? Was that play that bad? No, it wasn't that bad. Yeah, maybe it was. All these things that go through your mind, the sleepless nights thinking about the next, am I going to be in the game plan next week? All this stuff that went through my mind for the past 13 years, it's kind of out of there, and I'm on to commentary.
Do you wish that you had that one last game where you knew it was going to be your last game?
No. I think I played for 13 years. I think that was enough. I got my fill. I think, if I would have played less, and I wouldn't have won the Super Bowl, and I wouldn't have played for the Giants, an organization that really, did well by me throughout my whole career, I think it'd have been different. They showed me a lot of respect. They put me in the Ring of Honor, and those are the things that I'll definitely remember and that I'm really proud of.
Now you're working for Channel 9 now with Russ Salzberg. You're doing, you're analyzing the games after and the post game. So you're on top of what the Giants are doing right now.
Yeah.
They take on the Dallas Cowboys tonight. How do you think of this Giants team this year?
I'm really impressed. Win. No, I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed with the Giants. I'm really impressed with their defense. Perry Fuel, really got these guys on the same page, and I think that it's good to see the Giants after the season that they had last year. It's good to see them come back on defense and play so well, and get their running game going, because that was one of my main concerns coming into this season, was how ineffective their running game was down the stretch last year. And Ahmad Bradshaw, Brandon Jacobs seemed to be doing a much better job. The offensive line seems to be giving them the holes for them to do what they have to do.
Ready to answer some questions from the fans here?
Oh yeah.
The knowledgeable fans.
They know more than I do. I don't know.
So if anybody's got a question for Amani Toomer, Todd.
As a receiver, I'm sure you've been subject to some big hits, and talk now in the NFL is the defensive backs leading with their helmets. What's your take on it? Do you think it changes the game? Do you think the players are going to change the way they hit?
I think they are. You could imagine. I remember when I was my first couple years, in the league, they used to tee off on quarterbacks. Quarterbacks got out of the pocket, they didn't care. They slide, they didn't care. So once you get in their pocketbooks, people start paying a little bit more attention. But I really feel that I can feel for those guys on the other side, because, they're trying to tackle some of the best athletes going, and they don't have much room for error. So now you're going to slow them down a little bit, and I can see their side where they feel like they need, that they're going to be hampered by this. But it's going to save a lot of concussions, I think, and I think it's good. I agree with it to a point, but then I can feel for the other side as well. But I think it's going to help in terms of the concussions and things like that. I think one of the big things that they need to do is try to get the players to put on their helmets properly. Because, you see a lot of helmets get hit. You see a lot of people get hit and their helmets flip off, and that's all because they're not being put on properly. They make sure that you keep your socks up to a certain length. I'm sure they can make sure that your helmet fits right.
Amani, we got one over here.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to thank you for some of the greatest football moments that I remember.
Thank you.
I think it's great that Timex is going to be donating, $32,000 on your behalf?
No, there's 43,000, so there are people that are running. So maybe I'll get into the 40,000s.
So the question is, when you pass someone's record, like Frank Gifford, a legend also, do you end up calling him up and saying, "Yo, man, sorry"? Or, what happens after that?
No, I actually. I remember Frank, we were in the Ring of Honor thing, and Frank came up to me. He's like, "You broke all my records," but no, I had a good relationship with Frank. I think, I mean, his records were for I don't know how many years. I mean, he can't be that upset. It's been a long time.
We got one over here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely would. I have, I try and speak to as many kids as I can, motivate them. It's one of my things that I really feel strongly about is kids being involved in something after school, because I know there's a lot of kids where I grew up and just good kids, good athletes, whatever, but just because they didn't have anything to do in the after school, they kind of got sidetracked and, ended up not being able to do some of the things that they wanted to because of police records or things like that. That it really hurts them in the future, and some kids just don't realize the severity of their just hanging out on the street and how bad that could end up being. So I love talking to high school kids and things like that.
All right, we got time for 2 more, so we'll go here, and then we got one back here. Go ahead.
Congratulations on the Ring of Honor ceremony.
Thank you.
But I do want to know, what did Tiki say to you right before you were announced and right after he was announced? I noticed that he said something to you. Do you remember what that was?
Wow, you guys know how bad my memory is already, so I don't think I really remember. Yeah.
Follow up then?
Go ahead.
Is that a good answer?
Wow, tough. Yeah.
Did you reach out to Braylon after his DWI, or do you have any commiseration with any Michigan grads, like while they're in the NFL and trying to tutor them how to be a gentleman like you are?
No, I haven't really had a chance to talk to Braylon afterwards. I talked to him a couple times, as for when he was in Cleveland, but we kind of not fallen out because we don't have anything against him or anything, but I just haven't had a chance to be around him that much.
Okay.
Yeah.
And last one over here. Go ahead.
You've always been and had a reputation as being kind of a very straight shooter, which in the NFL everybody speaks in sound bites, so on and so forth. It's been very refreshing to hear you today say some things that a lot of people have thought for many years, and Fossil aside, and why he hasn't gotten a head coaching job aside. But when Lawrence Tynes missed the second kick in that championship game, you're freezing. What are you guys saying to each other on the sideline?
What are we saying? I was like, I can't believe this guy missed another one. I mean, what more do we got to do? But the story about this was we just got the interception, and we were trying to move it down just a little bit. So we ended up not moving it at all, make a long story short. So it's 4th down, we take a timeout, and Coach Coughlin looks over to Tynes. Tynes is already out there on the field. And then we look back, and everybody's like, are we going to go for it, or are we going to have this guy who missed 2 already kick another one? And so we look at Coach Coughlin, and Coach Coughlin is just, we'll kick it then! And then he ended up kicking it. And he kicked it. He really didn't have much of a choice.
Amani, thank you so much for this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thanks to everybody for coming out. Again, thanks to our sponsors again, Brooklyn Brewery, the Venti Single Malt Scotch, BMW of Mount Kisco, Agvinta Organic Vodka. And thank you for coming out to Bobby Van Steakhouse. It's always a lot of fun. And thanks again to Amani Toomer.